This is definitions of rhetoric. So the second page on the rhetoric.byu.edu site, and it's supposed to be a definition, but what you'll notice very quickly, and this is really, really, really important, is the definition of rhetoric is the study of. It's not really defining it. It's pulling in a little bit of Aristotle's definition, the art of persuasion. Aristotle's definition is really the most famous. It is the art of seeing the available means of persuasion in any given situation. We're going to break that apart because that is actually a really complicated definition. If we're thinking, what are the available means of persuasion in a given situation? I'm recognizing that there's a situation, and you'll hear me say this over and over. For Greeks and Romans, the audience didn't matter because the audience was fairly uniform. To have access to the rhetorical theory, or not really the rhetorical theory, sorry, to have access to the rhetoric within a speech, you had to have access to the speech, which meant you had to be a rich, white, landowning man so that you had citizenship. Women did not have citizenship. Non-landowners did not have citizenship. Non-Greeks, so Greeks and Romans spread out. If you really think of Alexander the Great, who was a student of Aristotle, so you can get timing about right. Aristotle taught Alexander the Great, and then Alexander the Great went out and spread even more. All of those cultures that were taken over were not eligible for citizenship because they were not native to the country. So we've had a lot of controversy over citizenship forever. That's not new to American politics, or we're seeing in England with England and Scotland, Ireland. None of that is new, none of it. So when we think about a definition of rhetoric, we have all of these complexities because what are the available means? Who is the audience? It's not until contemporary times that we have to start considering who the audience is, what they know, how they know. So instead, we're just looking at what are the available means for that given situation. So what is the situation? Aristotle starts breaking it down, but the situation matters. This is a video. I don't know where or when you're watching it. I don't know what kind of device you're watching it on, but I'm speaking directly to you, even though I recorded this potentially days before you see it. This situation that we're creating with me putting this together and you engaging with it in the class, and then me creating the purpose for you engaging with it and having that purpose, driven towards education and notes and then things that I'm rewarding you with points for. That entire setup is a really complicated situation, but it's not, because you've been in education for at least 13 years because you've been through K-12, and many of you are not first-year students, and so even longer than that. You understand the basics of learning design because you've been experiencing the basics of learning design for a really long time, so the situation is familiar. And then what we're doing in it, how you respond to it, is very specific. And so now I'm being super meta, which was an available mean of persuasion, to then explain to you rhetoric has lots of definitions. All of that comes together in this particular situation. So what I want you to look through with this definition, and we're going to get so much more in depth when we get to this book, especially because Plato really hated rhetoric and the idea of rhetoric. And so we've got sophists, and then we've got Plato, and then we've got Aristotle, and then most people kind of branch from Aristotle forward. And we'll talk about why that definition is so foundational. But to begin with, we really want to focus on, it is a study. Rhetoric is a study, and it is an art. Those are really important and really meaningful to then how the rest of the ideas unfold. It's not a science, because it's very difficult to break things down scientifically when we're dealing with human communication because we're crazy. But it is an art. And so when you look through this, don't come away looking for the definition, and you'll see in the notes, I call it a working definition. Come away with a working definition. And for me, to really throw some language at you, my working definition is that rhetoric is epistemological, ontological, and axiological. It is not just a study. It is the way that we think through culture. And it is the way that we use culture in a situation. I talked about this in the last video a little bit too. We think through all of these things. So when we talk about epistemology, the way that we make knowledge is cultural. I make knowledge, I have a couple different roles here on campus. So when I'm a grad coordinator, the center of my universe are my graduate students. When I'm teaching a 200 level class like this one, I'm putting together this video, the center of my world our 200 level undergraduates. These are different populations with different needs. And so where I'm thinking through and how my thinking is shaped by that situation and what the center of my world is in those cases, very, very different, even though they're similar. I'm still dealing with students. I'm still dealing with Millersville students and how awesome they are. But there's there are different needs just based on those two populations. And then even within those populations, whole variety and breadth of needs that are there. And so my definition, when I say epistemological and ontological and axiological, I'm really thinking through all of those little bits, not necessarily consciously. Sometimes, yes, absolutely consciously, but sometimes we subconsciously situate ourselves. A lot of times, especially with the internet and with technology, we contextualize ourselves, and then we think through, who are we in this space? And I've noticed this lately on TikTok, the stuff that's popping up on the For You page is super bizarre. And I'm like, what does this have to do with the videos that I watch and the videos I like? Like, you don't understand me right now, TikTok. Fix your algorithm. But I'm thinking through epistemologically, axiologically, and ontologically. What is it that I value on this space? What are the kinds of videos I watch? What is the kind of content that I engage with? And how am I communicating that to the site, to TikTok? And then how is TikTok responding? And right now on the For You page, it's not responding in a way that makes sense to me. Our ontology, our axiology, our values are out of alignment. And so I usually skip the For You page and go straight to the following, because I'm like, I'm not liking what you're selling me right now. You don't understand me. And I get that, and I'm thinking rhetorically. I am engaging rhetorically with the space and the decisions I make, and I don't like what they're making. So we use rhetoric in those ways, and so that's where it's an art form instead of a science, and that's where the definition is super squirrely, and it's typically working. Okay, if you have questions about this page or questions about my terminology, let me know.